What is this? Is it another Friday? And I am here in the seat already, ready for you guys. You know what? We've got Jim Segala on tonight. And this guy has not only been at Blind Frog Ranch, but he's been at SKINWALKER Ranch too. He's helped develop this cool device, the MUPAS device. And we're going to talk about that tonight because a lot of experiencers out there need to have this darn thing. I am telling you what, I've done a little bit of research on this thing. And what I'm finding is that we have a lot of news right now about the people in the military that have seen things with their own eyes. But what I really want to get back to is the experiencer aspect of this whole phenomena with ET. I think it's important. I think there's more knowledge to gain with the experiencer part of this. Just because of my own stuff, not only that, but even people like Dave Scott, of course. I just really want to bring this home. We've relied lately on a lot of people coming out in the government, and it's been what, 3 years now that they've been talking about this stuff. But here we are still. We don't know the truth. We don't have answers that we want. We get these little tidbits, you know what I mean? But there's more to be heard. And I think with Jim Segala's device, the MUPAS device, we might learn more. And we want to hear about that tonight. And so I'm excited to have him on the show. So let's go ahead and hit the intro, and then we'll get right into it, okay? So hold on to your seats and buckle your seatbelts, all right? It might be a bumpy ride, but I know you're in for it. So here's the intro.
Welcome to the dimension of the unknown, where the imagination reigns supreme, crafting worlds and realities that defy the limitations of our mortal coil. Beyond the veil of reality, there exists a realm that defies the boundaries of human perception. Certain places beckon with an otherworldly allure, stirring the senses and whispering secrets of a dimension that lies just beyond the threshold of our mundane existence. The air is alive with an electric anticipation, as if the next step might unravel the very fabric of reality, plunging us into an abyss from which there is no return. This realm is a boundless expanse, as infinite as the cosmos and as timeless as the ages. It inhabits the twilight zones of existence, where the glow of knowledge and the shadows of ignorance entwine like lovers in a cosmic dance. Here, the rational and the mystical converge, suspended between the depths of human terror and the pinnacle of our understanding. Welcome to Element 115.
Still working on my new intro, guys, but got the old one up, and that's, at least it's something. So anyway, without further ado, let's welcome Jim Segala. How you doing, sir?
Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great, and I'm happy that you have joined us tonight, for sure. I've known about this device for a while. I've talked to some people on Facebook about it, and I'm really interested to get back into the phenomenon as it happens with us experiencers, and kind of pull it out of the purview of the government. I think it's important, our story, more so And we can learn more so from the experiencers than we can from the people that have just seen the craft.
Oh, I think you're 100% correct. I heard a stat a couple, about maybe a year ago, that over half the people in the world have had some form of experience, unexplained phenomena, interaction, something like that. So that 100% overwhelms anything the government can produce, private industry can produce, aircraft companies can produce. There is just so many people out there having some profound experiences. Some just like jaw dropping experiences that those are the kind of information that really helps us to understand what's the origin, where did it come from, why is it here, is it communicating, what's it doing. If we go back 20 years ago and relied on the government to solve the problem, we'd still be holding our breath. So I'm glad that right now, with social media coming up and great podcasts like yours coming up, that people are starting to understand that they're not alone, and there's help out there, and there's ways to get through their day without being scared of the experiences that they're having.
Exactly. I'm so tired of the government trying to take control over the narrative when there's a larger narrative here. I feel like there's many aspects to this phenomena,
Sure.
and they want to try to control that aspect and how it's released to the public. And it's people like you that have come up with these devices, and it's people like myself and Dave Scott and so many others that want to bring the bigger picture to the people. I think that is so important. But of course, everybody's watching TV right now. Everybody is watching the big channels and listening to what they are saying. Yes, it's important, but it's only going to give us this fraction of a story when there's so much more.
Sure. I agree.
So tell
Yeah.
me, how did you get involved in all this?
So, I mean, this is going back probably 2015 timeframe so I worked for an institute out of Austin, Texas.
Mhm.
And being in that role, it was one of those think tank type of places that it was geared towards like fringe type of science. They would go. People would come to the institute and ask, can you figure out this thing out, this thing out. What we were getting is an enormous amount of medical cases of people that, now the word experiencer wasn't coined yet. I mean, that didn't come for a little while, but people that are having profound experiences, having some paranormal, or they're going into catatonia or something like that. And then subsequently, right after that, they would have some medical injury attached to that, where they would actually end up in the hospital. Of course, we were seeing the upper crust of it. There's a lot more people that were reporting these things, but we were seeing the top 0.001% of these, which were the bad ones, the ones that people ended up in the hospital. They were sick, and they would go in there for a week. So we were given a stack of these medical reports that flowed in for the past couple of years, and I was put on a team with another physician, and we were sent out to say, look, figure this out. Now, there has to be an answer to this. So we did our due diligence. We talked to the people. We did the diagnoses. We talked to their attending physicians. We did extra MRIs. We did, everything we can. We were very well funded.
Mm-hmm.
And what we concluded, of course, in science, you never conclude anything, but what we found is that these people, in fact, did have these profound experiences. And then following that, they then exhibited the symptoms very similar to that of, say, autoimmune type of diseases, or anything where they would get, rashes, they would get lesions, they would get fibrosis or things like that developing on their body.
Bell's palsy, perhaps?
It varies. It's more the symptoms that showed up, and it was and you have to realize that these are symptoms that the body was not able to understand what was happening, but it knew something entered its body that was foreign. You know how your immune system is always looking for that telltale sign of something weird going on there, and so like when something enters your body, of course, your white cells go, you know, your red cells go crazy and they try to attack it and get rid of it. And then it expresses itself different in different people. I've had people where their legs would blow up, get all fluid. And there was people that their hands would get all blow up right after they had like a UFO sighting or some kind of, or maybe even just orbs in their house or things like that. So these are the cases that really put us on the original track, trying to understand what was going on. And we were very naive at that point. We didn't really understand the layout of the whole, the environment and how things really played out and how many people were actually involved. And then we also then figured out that, well, actually, we had a very good indication that whatever was happening to these people was not being generated from within their heads. They weren't making this up, in other words. So some external force, some external energy was entering their body that made them have these experiences, leaving these medical marks on them, putting them in the hospital. So we said, obviously, we went back and we said, look, we want to instrument these people to the extent that if it ever happens again, we can record it and start making some real scientific sense of it and really get some good data. Now, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, these poor people. There was only 40 cases that we felt that were really good test cases, scientifically proven cases that we can investigate. And we actually ran a study for 3 years with these people. We gave them these. Actually, that was the incarnation of the MUPAS device. So we gave them devices that they could put in their person, they could leave it in their house, they could do whatever they want, bring it to work, and it would just record and record. But also, very, very important, they would put in they would log their events. They would put in their daily narratives, which told us what was going on, even if it was a good day. It was a good day, bad day, whatever. We wanted to know what was happening, and so they would basically put in just chronologically order what was going on during their day on a daily basis. So we did that for 3 years, and the data that came out of that study was just phenomenal. We felt that we had a very strong confidence level that it was in fact something happening to them from the outside. So then, of course, when you do this, and we couldn't publicly publish because it was funded by a person that was actually, very private. So they wanted to have the data. But after that, we had made the decision that from this point on, we were going to run this study one more time. So this is probably 2 or 3 years ago. We said, okay, that was the first incarnation of this. We ran the study. Everything was fine. We got our data. But now we wanted to do it again. In fact, we were asked to do it again. But this time we wanted to disseminate all the information back out to the public for the people that were involved in the study and the scientists that were there trying to gather the data that could actually make sense of it. So that was the full premise that we said, well, we're going to start making these devices again and getting people involved in this to let the data go out. We, of course, scrub it for all the personal things, and all the information, gets very tightly secured, and have it go out to all these, let the people, and I'll show you some of the stuff that we can do with this, and how people, experiencers like yourself would have one of these devices. They can interact with it. They can ask it questions. How do I compare with other ones and things like that, other people. So so that really started us off, and we're at the point where we have actually over 200, like 250 devices all throughout the world, and they're actually right now just cranking, sending out data. People are actually putting their narratives on a daily basis, and we're creating really, really good models to really start to understand what's going on. So that's how it all started, and it was and it was very benign to start off with, and then all of a sudden it just ramped up. It kept going and going and going, and and we found out that there was such a large portion of the population that had experiences that we said, look, this is an amazing science laboratory where you have such a large population. Getting people to get involved in this is a challenge. But just so I wanted to mention, one of the great things about this is that during our first phase of this, the original phase where we only had 35 people, one of the families that were involved were fairly wealthy. I mean, they had a lot of money, but this system that we put in place where they can, log all their things really helped the whole family get through the whole experiencer thing because they were having very bad. And they promised, or they actually are now funding the actually cost of the equipment. So when people do sign up, they could sign up and the cost of the equipment is actually paid for already. So that's a little, that reduces the barrier for people to get involved. I mean, there's a lot of other issues people have, but that they don't, they don't want to admit that things are, going on in their household or what, so they kind of shy away. But that barrier is soon coming down. It's coming down every day. So.
Well, that's important too. And I think that the fact that these experiencers have someone that they can talk to as well about their experiences and see that other people are going through the similar experiences that they are.
Right.
That validation is huge for an experiencer that you are not alone, that this is
Right.
happening to other
Yeah.
people out there. So is there some sort of group together with other experiencers where they can have communications with
Sure.
other
I
people
can
that are,
actually, yep, I can show it to you. I have a portal if you want. Are you okay if I share my screen?
I think I can. I haven't tried that on, but let's give it a go.
Okay, I'm gonna share my portal screen,
There we go.
which is this is the portal that we use that everybody's out there using. We do have, like Heselden, we have devices right now that are out there, and these devices are registering and recording constantly throughout the day. We have, like Blind Frog Ranch. There's actually that's an interesting spike. Blind Frog Ranch. There's a device out there. People must be walking around and doing something. So this is the data. This is actually live data of coming from their device. You can see that you've got, some. So this is the real-time data coming from the device. And so when you enter the program, you get to see all, like Blind Frog Ranch. You get to see, all of these things. You get to see Heselden. We have some of Rushland Forest in England. We have devices there that people can just come into the portal. So when you enter the study, again, the devices are all paid for. When you enter the study, you get access to this, and basically you can have all of these. So we've got all of these public devices that are out there that you can monitor and basically comment on and things like that. So I just want to let you know that. So we have discussion boards here. So like people will enter and they talk, and then they can comment. They can add comments to it. They can post a new message, and they can go back and forth. So we have a whole social media infrastructure, so people can say, what's going on with this, what's going on with that, and you can, click into it, and very, very detailed, and you can have photos and all sorts of stuff. But also, we've got a thing where you can chat with a experiencer, or we call them a mentor, or
Oh, that's wonderful.
That you can sit there and you can ask questions. You can say, I just had a bad experience. I had an earache. My head is on fire. What should I do? I mean, these are the kind of things that these people could give great advice on. And we also have something where we've actually, let me just give you an idea of some questions you can ask. You can actually ask it. We call it our MUPAS AI agent. So you can say, what are the places where experiencers claim their experiences are more powerful and profound? You ask it this question, and it'll think about it and come back. Whoops, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. So it'll think about it and come back, and it'll give you an answer. And so, this will be an answer that they'll give. So some common places where experiencers claim their experiences are more powerful and profound: natural environments, sacred places, near-death experience. So this is like an educational thing that people don't realize, that they can come into here, they can ask it pretty much any question they want, and it'll kick back an answer for them. So they can start researching and understanding why they're having these experiences and what's going on in their lives.
Right. That's fantastic. Do you guys have recommended therapists for people? as well?
Yeah, we don't. So what we have are people that we call, they might be mentors or they might be subject matter experts, but we do work with a company in England that have psychologists, anthropologists on staff that we could recommend. So if we do, so this little tab here, when you go and you chat with your mentor, they might recommend that you contact these people. So we have a bullpen of physicians that, I mean, that's a big step to take for people because they'd have to, talk to them and you'd have to, go through that process. But we do have that ability to, recommend that, look, I think your case is severe enough that you might want to go and talk to these individuals. And we actually have people in Texas, so people in the United States and people in England, and they were actually starting to develop a relationship in Australia. We have a lot of Australian devices out there. Wonderful. And there's a lot of people that are, really, some people are having a very good time with this stuff, and some people are not having a very good time with this stuff. So we try to help them all.
Yeah.
But, these are all the things that we do, and then you can, and here you can go log your own incidences. So here's a couple things. So like you said, while I was walking outside, I felt lightheaded, and then you can put pictures in here. You can actually put narratives in here, and this remains for you to catalog. You can sort on it. You can do all sorts of crazy things, and add your own narratives. This is all your private stuff. So like this incident report is private. No one ever sees it.
Okay.
But what we do now is then we take this information and we put it into our AI models, and that's what actually goes ahead and drives this AI agent or the MUPAS AI agent to get the right answers. Is that we're using their data and programming and training this thing. So when you do ask it questions, it's not just arbitrary answers. These are answers of people, the hundreds and hundreds of people out there having experiences, answering the questions. And then one of the interesting things that we do is that when you get involved with the study, you come in, you answer. So we have a survey that has in total 144, but we only ask you to answer 34 to actually get in the study. So you can answer it, and then every time you answer one of these questions, and it's all about, let's see, I can go through the different things. So it's about your experiences, it's about your environmental situation, your medical situation, your biographical information. All this stuff is super private. It never ever goes out of the system. But we use it to train our LLM models to make them smart enough to answer the questions that you might want to come back with. Like, for instance, you might ask it, how old is a typical experiencer? And then it would use this data from hundreds of people or thousands of people to answer that question.
Right.
So, it's the kind of thing where, you have the ability to learn a little bit about what's going on in your life from all the other people out there.
That's a great help. I wish I had that tool when I realized that I was being taken, but I didn't. And I wonder how many people out there are that struggle with that very same thing once they realize, that they're part of this bigger phenomena.
Well, if you actually look at some of the stuff going on in like the social media, like the Reddit groups and things like that, what you'll find is that there's a lot of people posting in saying that they're being abducted. Either they're seeing orbs, or they're seeing the crafts, or they're having these profound experiences where, sometimes people would report that they're actually talking to somebody in the future or talking to somebody in the past. And they would go into this catatonic state and wake up an hour later and feel like they've learned something, or somebody was trying to communicate with them.
Yes. Do you find that the symptoms with the abductees are common? They're common symptoms?
Yeah. So in our survey, when we ask the people, they actually, they give us their answers, but we also, we categorize that. We catalog, what the average is, but they all seem to have this whole flare of appear to be something that the body is trying to protect itself using its immune system, and it comes out in different ways. So there's a lot of lesions. There's a lot of rashes, a lot of headaches and nosebleeds, and there's a lot of,
Mhm.
you know, your extremities getting weak. You know, arthritis. You know, arthritis is a form of autoimmune. So people will get very very stiff afterwards and can't move, and then a day or so later, it all clears up, and then they're back to normal again. So, there is a lot of commonality, and I think the commonality comes from the fact that maybe these people are having experiences, and basically their body is just saying, what the heck was that, and trying to attack something.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So they're exhibiting similar attributes in a way that their body is reacting to some external force or some
Exactly
external
right. So it's
trauma.
energy, yeah, it's internal energy
Okay.
that's entering their body. That's one of the conclusions we can almost say for sure is it is coming from the outside. A lot of people that I've heard that when they talk to professionals that know how to deal with this, the first thing they said is that I'm crazy. I'm just having these things, and it feels like I'm hallucinating, and it turns out that they're not hallucinating, and this is actually something that they're just interacting with something. They just don't know what the heck it is. It's some invisible energy field that is controlled by some intelligent being, maybe, or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people walk away knowing more than they had prior to that.
Right. I can see that. Definitely. So the device itself, what is that recording? What type of energy is that recording?
Well, let me show you what the device. So this is the device. It's very small. It just sits there and it records all sorts of stuff. And let me just give you an idea. So, in fact, if I could share my screen again,
Yeah,
I
I
can
can
actually
grab it.
show people what.
Mhm. Let's see here. I'm waiting for it to
Just,
pop up.
yep. Oh, I'm actually. I need to say share.
Okay, add stage. Okay, there we go.
So, you know, what this thing does is it reads the microwaves, gamma rays. It does the IMU stuff, so the accelerometer, magnometer, gyroscope. It looks for gravity variations. Looks for acoustic energy. So it's actually trying to find these very long wavelengths, and it's
Mhm.
barometric pressure. All of these things go into trying to understand what's happening around their vicinity. So this is basically, it sits there all day long and it sends it up to the server.
Mhm.
So we actually use Azure, which is the Amazon's, and it's a HIPAA compliant. For anybody that knows what HIPAA is that
Mhm.
it's basically medical proof. So if you put your data up there, basically nobody can get to it. I mean, they have built some incredible firewalls around this data. So once the
Right.
data goes up there, it's very, very secure. So that's why we
Gotcha.
pick them. So it records all this all the time. And then around 1 o'clock in the morning, we have these little, what they call cron jobs, that go off and pulls all their data together, all their narratives, and it helps train our models. So right now, like in a few hours from now, we'll get a kickoff, and then it'll start training all the data. So, this is the actual MovePass device, which is we call it the mini, and that's basically just sits on your desk. But there's a whole bunch of things you can add to it. You can put a so there's a whole bunch. Do I have it here? So we have a microwave spectrum analyzer, so you can get the spectrum of the electromagnetic energy.
Mhm.
We have a gamma ray detector that you can plug in the back of it, a camera if you want, and basically it just sits there and just gathers that information all day long. And we have another device that we use. It's a wearable device that you can go, has
Okay.
basically the same type of stuff, but a lot of people use it because they say, well, I'm not home all the time when it happens. I'm, in the car, I'm, at work, or, shopping, or doing whatever. So we have something that they can take out, and this adds a little bit extra where we and now look at the biometrics of their body. So,
Yeah.
when they had an experience, were they did their blood pressure go up? Did they start having these tremors? Did they start having the nervous twitches that people do when they start getting scared? So we fold all that information into the system as well. All in the sense of trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah, that seems like it's more for the physiological type of reactions to the phenomena, and then the other device is more kind of an external. Is that correct?
Exactly right. So if you're sitting at home, you're doing your thing, and you're having these experiences, in your private space, you're probably looking to do this device. But if you're always out and about and doing your things, you can do pretty much have this. But what's great about this device is that it's very low power, so you can power it off one of those just USB power packs, and it also will store probably 20 something hours worth of data. So you can actually take this thing with a battery pack, bring it to the field. I know a lot of MUFON people do that. They just bring it to the field, they set it on their like a picnic table, then they go off and do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then while it's doing it, just records, and it's they sometimes plug a camera in so you can actually record the sky to find any objects. And it's got a really nice IR camera option that we can have with it. So you can record any high energy device or high energy objects that are floating around the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is it's been almost 10 years. I mean, since this the very very first one that went out to the people back in 2017. I think around in that area. 2017 was the first one that came out, and then it just gradually evolved to pick up different things, make it more comfortable for people. The screens, of course, got more fancy, and it allowed them to talk to other people and interface with all of our models that we train. So it evolved over time. It's not something that we put together quickly. This took a long time to put together.
Yeah, I did a lot of research myself on the accelerometer and plugging that into my PC when I'm out in the field, because that'll actually track magnetic fields. Even at a distance of miles away, it will pick up. And the device that I have it'll actually put on the screen, well, it tracks where that anomaly is in the sky.
That's great. Yeah.
And that kind of technology is incredible, and you have it in this little box.
That's correct. Yep. And it actually, what we find out is that when people do have these profound experiences, these channels will indicate it. And like the gyroscope, what the gyroscope is like the magnetic field, but it's the twisting motion.
Right.
We find out that the gyroscope is one of the sensors that really gets hit the most. I think you can actually almost visualize if something is in your environment, some high energy device is in your environment that's swooshing by you or moving around you, some orbs or whatever, your surroundings will get disturbed. And if you've got an instrument that can pick that up, it can indicate, later on as you look at the data that, something did happen. And of course, your body sometimes is sensitive enough to actually feel that too.
Yeah.
So and that's why your immune system kicks in, because says, whoa, what the heck is this? I've never seen anything like this. Let's go attack. I mean, that's how your body works. But your devices are actually picking this up at the same time. So we just had a MUFON outing probably about 4 months ago, where they went out to the field, about 20 of them, and they, were looking around, and all of a sudden they saw something pass by the top of the trees, and they took pictures of it and everything like that. Well, the device recorded it verbatim and showed a big spike. In fact, it was in the gyroscope, but also in the gamma. It put out some pretty big gamma rays that were fairly disturbing for these people. And but it was great to have them come back and download everything and say, oh wow, we verified that we actually did see this. We weren't all crazy. So so they got the data, the video data. They got their eyewitnesses, plus they got the scientific instruments to back them up.
Yeah, and I think that's huge too for experiencers, is that you may know that you saw something, but you question it. Right. On the back end, you do. It just happens. That's what's happened to me. That's what's happened to millions of other people around the world. If you can have that data that just reinforces the fact that you're not
Right.
crazy. What you saw was real.
Yep. And then
And
one of the things we do is that if they opt into this, we will send out a notification that the
Mhm.
system has detected that something at this particular time has happened. And we don't want to scare anybody, but we kind of do these announcements to them and say, look, something happened. This is the data that we got, and it comes out in an email to them. They say, oh my god, and then they can click into it and look and see exactly what the data looks like. I mean,
Mhm.
it's to make people, and actually, to tell you the truth, it's really grown into the thing that just makes people more comfortable with their experiences. It gets
Mhm.
them to be part of their day. So if you gain information about something that scares you or frightens you or whatever, you get more confident with it, and obviously people have this amazing ability to get used to anything. So,
Right.
and they get used to it, and it becomes part of their life, and that's what this family that funds the study basically said to me is that we were afraid to leave the house sometimes, and these are very very wealthy people that are
Mhm.
lawyers, and they had to go out, but they had these experiences that scared the hell out of them. But after they were in the study, it became part of their lives, and they still knew about it, and they still they cataloged it, and they put it in their narratives. But at least it wasn't debilitating. It didn't drag them down.
Yeah, I've often called that phenomena for me the heebie-jeebies.
Yes, yeah, that's actually a really good word for it. But people can
Mhm.
get used to that. It's
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
yeah. When I first started doing research into it myself after I had my incident, um, I'd put out cameras and I'd leave everything off. I wouldn't turn anything on until I saw something. And then I started to feel when they would be coming around or when they would come around. And then I would turn my cameras into the direction that I thought that it would come from,
Yeah.
that I got the impression that they would come from. And that's where they would show up and that's what I would film.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And so that was the way I went about it. And then later, what I did was when I got set up, I would just hit record. And the problem I find with that is that you're recording so much data that it is so hard when you've got like 6 cameras
Yeah.
and a parabolic mic that's, recording infrasound and you've got all this stuff. I mean, oh my God,
It's
probably
overwhelming how much data you
100
can
grand
collect.
on,
Yeah.
on equipment just
Right.
for and
But
it's overwhelming.
computers love doing that stuff. I mean, that's what they're designed to do. So,
Well,
yeah,
that is your device then combed through by a team of people, or how does that work?
a computer program. Yeah.
Really?
Nobody really sees the data except. So, you're familiar with the new AI and all of that
Mhm.
stuff.
Yep.
So we train AI models, and that was I just gave you. When I asked it that question, that was a model that we trained. I mean, just like OpenAI does, and all these companies do. We have our own model, but it's all experiencer data. It's got no other data, and it's all experiencer data. So we take all the data that comes from devices, come from people, and we train these things, and that's what we basically allows us to, really personalize this. So one of the things that we do, to kind of talk about what you just said, is that we know your run up from like when you're having an okay time to when
Mhm.
things get kind of crazy and you're going to have a very big experience. We've seen so many of those for each individual that we could almost not alert them, notify them when something seems to be ramping towards some pinnacle or some point where they're going to have some big experience or they're going to have some profound experience. So that's one of the beauties of the system. So every night we take all the, an individual's data, we take all their narratives and we put it together.
Mhm.
We compare it to all the months and months that they've had before. And we look for situations where we do find a run up. So what I mean by that is that, are you getting to the point where, in the past when all these things happened you came to a point where you had a very large experience and you reported like, a complete out of body or an abduction, or you reported something, and it gives people a little notification of how things are going.
Yeah, I would find it super interesting, especially with the watch, that's tracking more of the physiological aspects of
Yes,
this.
right.
Does it have a GPS in it?
Yep. Yeah. Inside the watch. Yeah. Well, it runs off a phone. All the phones have that. We don't
Right.
track, we don't use that. But what we do use, we don't use the actual position. What we do use is the number of satellites that it connects to, because
Hmm.
as energetic things enter your environment, the GPS signal is so weak that it gets affected very quickly. So when we see a
Okay.
dip in GPS signal, that's when we say, okay, wait a minute, something's weird. And then we also find like the heart rate will increase, the blood pressure will increase. I mean, you'll start doing the nervous twitching, and they say, okay, well, something's going on.
So, in other words, you can't track them once they get on a craft.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, we
Yeah,
don't, that data doesn't even actually come into the server at all. We throw that away.
I
I think
gotcha.
it's, we keep that very, very private. One of the things the two things we decided to do was that individuals kept their data kept super, super private. It really doesn't even leave the device. We scrub out all of the information that could lead to somebody finding them even before it gets on the airwaves. Then once it gets to the airwaves, it goes right up to Azure, which is very, very secure. No one can break into.
Hmm.
And then, again, what we do is that we then take that data, scrub it from, completely scrub it with anything that they've told us that might be personal. And then we start training their individual, basically their AI models that are tailored to them.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Well, this is a serious piece of tech. How many iterations has this thing gone through?
Oh, quite a few. Yeah. So it started, like I said, I think the first one. So we started the project in 2015. We really didn't get to, most of it was manual, where we just do it. We did a lot of investigations by hand. Probably not till 2017 do we actually start building, these little pieces of equipment that we gave to people. So that was iteration number one. And then, of course, it went through many iterations after that. Oh, let's add this sensor. Let's add this sensor. We have to know what, we didn't include gamma to begin with. We said, wait a minute, gamma seems to be the prevalent energy source for these experiences. So we added gamma, and then we added, like the barometric stuff, or I'm sorry, barometric pressure actually is a very telltale indicator, because what happens is that something energetic enters your environment, it starts moving the air molecules around, which causes these pressure changes. And that's why people say that they hear weird things when something's around, because the air molecules, starts warbling and doing that. So we pick that up, not just in the acoustics, but we also pick that up in the barometric pressure. You'll get a really weird variation in the
I'm going to tell
barometric
you right
pressure.
now, that right there is blowing my socks off, because I get this whoa, whoa,
Yes,
whoa,
yes.
whoa.
It's like an audible infrasound, but
Yes. And
it affects your ears are very, very sensitive.
yeah, I've had that several times. Living in the house that I used to live in, and I didn't know what the heck, but it makes sense now. Wow.
Yeah, so it pushes these things push the air molecules around, and of course
Yeah.
they start transferring their energy to your ear. Also, your optical nerve, your eyes are very, very sensitive. I have a lot of reports of people when they start having experiences, or they're building up to an experience. They'll say, I started seeing dots. How sometimes you see like these floaters, these dots in front of your eyes. They'll see dots in front, because all of this energy is coming in and actually, making your eyes think that there's these little particles floating around, but they're really not. But it's just this energy. So I get a lot of that type of thing.
Wow. Yeah, it seems to me like there's so much information to gather, and how do you place that information? I guess because people are constantly saying, okay, this is what happened during the day,
Yes,
or
we
this is
marry
what
it
I
to
felt.
their narratives. Yep.
And so you're marrying those two together. to try to come out with some narrative on what exactly happened to these people.
Right. So initially, I think the goal was just to make sure that these people were not making this up internally. So they're not pathological, meaning that, they didn't have something wrong with them that made them do this. There was something from the outside. So we came to that conclusion probably, within about 3 or 4 years after we had to gather a ton of data to do that. But I think within 3 years of actually starting this thing, we actually kind of concluded that, yeah, in fact, I think we have a high confidence that most of these things are happening from the outside. Now, of course, there are some people that do have these hallucinations. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
There's a full span. You get enough people in a room, they're going to have somebody's going to have that type of thing happen to them. But anyway, so we look for that, and we know that that is going to happen. So we just ensure that we're not, we're not caught, we're not biasing the system based upon that. So we're very careful with that.
That's good. So that being said, the device is recording all the time. I am wondering if people by themselves are able to affect this device somehow.
Well, okay, so one of the beauties of having a widespread system is that we do two things with it, and it's part of the experience that we do. So we have people that they're talking to each other. They don't know who they are. They don't know who the other people are, but
Gotcha.
we give them the ability to um, to push their intent out on them, on somebody else. So we'll ask like participant one to pick some random person out there and intent on them. And so in other words, you project your intent on them, and then we watch the other device to see if they can make their device change. And then because we have both devices going on at the same time coming into the system. So it's kind of an experiment people sign up for once they're in the study, and they, we've had all their data. We will send out a thing that says, would you like to participate in in an experiment, which is, can you make somebody else's device wiggle a little bit from across the United States or some part of the world. You don't know who the person is. All you're given is like a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we find is that if we get enough people focused on that one person simultaneously, we can get that person's device to jiggle and come out and be. And when I say jiggle, I mean that we record, hours and hours of what we call environmental background noise. And then anything that deviates from that sends a signal out to say, okay, something's weird going on. So we let these people intent on this one device out there, this one individual actually, and we wait to see if we get an alert during that time frame to do it for like 10 minutes or something like that. So that's one experiment that we run. Another experiment that we run is that we don't really have the density yet, but when devices are located within very short, small areas, like, within a mile of each other or maybe 10 miles of each other, we group those together to see if that experience that will actually move from one device to the next device. So, and we've had like 4 or 5 different occurrences where one person will report something, and then down the road, the next person will report something, and then another person will report something. So we're starting to get this whole flow of energy from device to device. Of course, we only have, less than 300 out there, but as we get more and more, that will be something that. So we do know that this energy does flow from person to person, or, along some path or wherever it's going.
So let's just take, for instance, a craft is overhead and it's flying from the north to the south, let's say from Washington through California. You're going to pick up blips, possibly from the device where the craft could be directed or going.
That's
direction.
What we're thinking is, or, it might not even just be only from a craft. I think it's very possible that whatever this intelligence is that actually communicating with these people, they do it in a form that might be just a flow of information that's going over the surface of the earth. So that's why maybe certain people are picking this up. So it might not have to be, if a lot of people think that it has to be a UFO to make experiences happen. Well, that's not the case. We haven't found that to be the case.
Okay.
We think that, but then again, you ask yourself the question: wait a minute, just because you didn't see something doesn't mean it's not there. We don't know what these crafts are capable of doing. They might live in a different electromagnetic spectrum. We only see in the visible light spectrum. They exist in some other, tiny. They could exist in something completely different that we are completely not aware of, or even have sensors to sense. So anyway, we don't know what it is, but we know that we can watch it go from device to device, and it takes it's not very fast. I don't know. I still can't explain why it's not so fast, but it needs about like 3 or 4 milliseconds to travel around a kilometer. So that's not fast at all. I mean, this is a very slow moving energy field. But once it gets there, of course, it interacts with the people, and they have their experiences. And, unbeknownst to them, somebody a mile away is participating in the same experience as they are, but, they're not connected. But the system is connected. So that's why it's very important that everything goes up and it's all time stamped and all accurate.
Well, that's just a wealth of information. I even after it gets run through AI, how it's disseminated, how,
Yep.
I mean, how do you even begin to analyze it yourself? I have it.
It's
Do
very
you have
difficult. Yeah.
other people too that are involved in that?
Well, we have people, so we partner with some scientists that are basically experts at basically understanding, from the clinical point of view. So they're very
Okay.
good at understanding from the clinical point of view. So they know how to ask the questions. They helped us put together the survey. They know the right way to interpret. So yeah, and then we use that data to configure our training models for our AI. So
Gotcha.
those are the kind of people. So we've got people like Gary Nolan, and people like the people out in England that are I didn't want to say their name, but you probably know who they are. There's a big group out there that well, I guess they're public. The Unhidden People that are, they're, I don't know if you ever heard of them. They're great people. That they're all clinical. They're very, they write a lot of papers. They help out.
Good.
And then there's a lot of people that are, that we have working, that are scientists that are helping, and we craft all this together.
Are there any negative effects to the phenomenon as far as physiological?
Well, it's very strange. It's a really good question, and I have to admit and be honest that there are some people that claim when you put this device, you get a higher rate of experiences than when the device wasn't there. And there is this thing, the dog whistle effect. We work with the psionics people, so I don't know if you know what is it, the psionics people that call crafts. We have them go out. We put a device next to them, and we can actually see the things going on when they're claiming. So it's very possible that because the phenomena knows somebody's watching, they, believe it or not, it's possible that they might come by more often because
Yes,
they know somebody's watching. Or the
I
other way,
confirm. I can
it
confirm.
might be. And then some people claim that when they put the device there, all the experiences go away.
Mm.
So, and it turns the other way. So maybe it's the other way. It's very hard to explain. Each individual is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. I mean, there is, anytime you have a device, and I'm sure you might have had this situation when you had your cameras out and things like that. I've heard people that were, going to the field trying to find something. They found out that when they weren't looking is when things happened.
Mhm.
If you remember, so Bob, Bob Bigelow, right? So
Oh
Bob
yeah.
Bigelow
Mhm.
owned Skinwalker Ranch when I was there. That's who I worked with. His biggest complaint is that he would spend millions of dollars on scientific equipment and people and stuff like that to be over here looking at this. And then all come to find out is that all the good stuff was happening way over there where he wasn't. And it was just disturbing for him to, be fooled that way. So, this is, it's like, it is a very interesting situation that people have to wrap their heads around because it's very difficult to do.
That's part of their sense of humor, I think. So,
yeah.
Sometimes, it seems like they give us the information in such odd ways. Sometimes you don't find it till later. And then it's so obscure or so just random that you have no choice but to believe that they're making fun of you or they're making a joke about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I've found that myself. But that's interesting. So what about like positive effects from the phenomena, not necessarily from the device? Have there been, as far as you know, has there been people that have been cured of things like cancer and stuff like that from?
Well, I don't know if you can relate it to that, but I think that one of the things that very positive is that people are dealing with this whole thing, the whole experiencer phenomena, in a way that they're grasping it, they're getting their hands around it, and they're understanding it, and it empowers people to, take that. Once you know something about something, you it's a less of a scary environment. Yeah. There's a lot of people scared of it. So does it solve? I don't know whether or not you can claim that it solves any problems like cancer or something like that. But sure enough, I mean, people feel better when they know that they have a little bit control. Knowledge is control. Right. A little bit control of what's going on around them.
Very good. Very good. Well, sir, we've got 5 minutes left of the show, and I know it's very late for you over there.
That is true.
And I really appreciate you coming on. How can people get a hold of you or take a look at this device that you have?
So I've been looking for it, but I can't find it. I had a QR code and all thing, but I can actually give you and post it inside of the chat. Is that okay? Then you can
maybe absolutely
pop it up on the screen.
Yes.
I don't know if you can. So there's the URL to take. I put it in the private chat. Okay, and if you want to post that as a message.
Let's see if I can do that. Let's go to comments. Let's try that again. Copy. Let's see. Why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you anyway?
So you can go to experiencerstudies.com. It's experiencer-studies.com. And you can just go right into there. And also you can, I'm on Facebook and all that stuff. So you can actually just search my name, Jim Segala, on Facebook, and I'll pop up. In fact, if you just go to Google and search my name, theexperiencerstudies.com will come up, and you'll basically get into there and read all about the actual, the study and how it's funded and what your involvement would be if you decided to get into it. And, basically it's one of those things that you can, really without a whole lot of effort, we ask you to take the survey, and it helps us understand a little bit about your situation, the unique situation. Once we know that, we develop an AI model just for you. And then we just, once you get your device and it's operating and you're putting in your narrative, it just gets smarter and smarter as the day goes by. And, it starts telling you things about, what's going on.
Well, that's awesome. We're going to have to talk later. I'm going to have to get one of these darn things, especially when I'm out in the field. But not only that, but when I'm at home here, because things do happen around the house. But I appreciate you, sir, for coming on. And hopefully,
great having you. Great to have you.
Yeah, it was awesome. We'll definitely have to talk later. All right. Thank you very much for coming on. Element 115 and Spaced Out Radio. Appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and hit the outro, guys. I'm going to put you back in the back. So.
Okay.
All right. So Dave shows up next, guys. You know what that means. If you don't, you better chew your food. All right.